Hi everyone. In front of you are Leon and Rav from IBM, and they're going to be talking about how they use AI to simplify and automate operations. Thank you.
Can you turn me on? Okay. Welcome everybody. I'd like to start the presentation with a very funny story, which almost became not very funny. So it took a lot of trouble and flight cancellations and reroutes to get to South Africa. And 5 minutes before the start of the session, we got locked in the room. We couldn't get out. So I thought maybe we made it to South Africa, but we're not going to make it to the presentation after all. Finally, somebody opened up the room. Andrei from Intella saved us. Actually, he called people out and got us out. So I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad that all of you are here. So we're going to talk about what happens when AI meets corporate EdTech, but more appropriately, how can you automate everything with AI, specifically in the area of open edX. So I want to tell you, that's us, Rav and myself. Hard to confuse who is who. So fair warning, I'm not an educator. Okay, Rav is. And there's over 3 million people who have taken Rav's courses. Now, what I talk about is IT infrastructure scaling, and I know a lot about the enterprise because I earned that beard by being working with the IT in the enterprise. So, a lot of the talk about keynotes at this conference have been around accessibility of education. So I thought that we'd begin by showing the way we see accessibility. And a lot of the times people, when you mention accessibility, people say, oh, it's about providing stuff for free. Somehow we associate to say, if you make stuff free, therefore it's accessible. That's actually not the case. So in our case specifically, we only teach technology subjects. And to learn technology, you really have to have a hands-on experience with technology. And to have hands-on experience with technology, you need to have access to the infrastructure for that technology. And we all know, I think we all heard, that that infrastructure is not easily available. High bandwidth connections, more important, large, latest tech laptops with GPUs and 55 cores of CPUs in them and 1 gig of, or 32 gig of memory and all that good stuff. Not available to everyone. So the way we've designed it is, I'm going to talk about 150 different portals that we run on Open edX, but I wanted to showcase one. So this particular one is called cognitiveclass.ai, and it's one of our portals. It offers a lot of stuff for free. As a matter of fact, all the learning in it is for free. And right now there's 119 courses on different aspects of technology. There are 329 guided projects there. Think of guided projects as short form courses, something you can do in under an hour, hands-on. Okay. It's all about the bleeding edge technology. We don't teach anything that's more than a few years old, or anything that's already super popular and it's in production, and 5,000 other people can teach you the same thing. We focus on sort of the next wave of stuff. And most important is it provides all of the access to everything that you need to do without access to specialized equipment. So you don't need to have anything more than just a web browser. A Safari, a Firefox, or Chrome, any of those will do. Even Microsoft Edge. Okay? So that's the way we see making stuff accessible. But what we really do, and by the way, this is AI-generated images, the last one in the deck. I didn't want to bore you with DALL-E 3 images. So, what we do is we actually help corporate customers and IT professionals get trained in the latest tech. And the way we do it is by creating custom training portals for our customers, for our partners, for education institutions, and so on. And we're quite successful at this. We've created over 150 of these. Now, each one of these portals is a dedicated instance of Open edX. So we run a lot of edX instances. on all of these instances, on all these portals, we have 8 million registered learners. So I almost made the mistake of saying 1,000. 8 million. Okay. Collectively, all of them have enrolled in 20 million different courses on all of these platforms. I also mentioned we provide access to technology to run this, to the infrastructure to run this. So we do this through something called Skills Network Labs. And last year, we ran 10 million lab sessions on our platform. That's a lot of sessions. So all of this requires a very substantial IT infrastructure. It's all on the cloud. It's all containerized. We don't have any VMs. And it's all distributed around the world to be close to where our learners are. So we have data centers on 4 continents, 6 different data centers. So we're in Asia, we're in Europe, we are in North America in 2 places, in Canada and the United States, actually in 3 places in Canada and the United States, and Australia. So we're quite distributed in our infrastructure. And all of that stuff, all of it, is run by 6 full-time employees and 8 student interns who are on rotation. So we employ, my team is about 70% students. So we hire a lot of students. If you know good ones, especially in Canada, they have to be in Canada actually. We'd love to hire them. We're continuously in the hiring cycle. So how do you do all of that? Well, the only way to do this is to automate, automate, and automate. So I already mentioned that we do a lot of stuff with Kubernetes, and our clusters are scalable, so more workload, more worker nodes, less workload. We tail it down, provision all the time. So all those 10 million lab sessions, that we're constant. Every time you start a lab session, the environment is provisioned for you. Every time you finish the lab session, the environment is returned back. Otherwise, we would not be able to afford any of this. But one thing that's really difficult to automate is interactions with humans. You know, the humans who create content, the humans to consume your content, the learners, the students, and the authors and instructors. So this is where AI becomes really handy. Now, this architecture chart is just to give you an idea of what everything I'm talking about. So everything you see on your right, yes, everything you see on your right, those are portals. So each one of those tiles, and there's 150 of those, each one of those is an open edX instance. And they're with our large corporate customers, with universities, with training providers, with accelerators, all sorts of places like that. Everything you see on the left, that's our authoring environment. And we call it the Skills Network Faculty. And there's one big tool in there called Author Workbench. This is where you create all the content. That ultimately, part of it is actually Open edX Studio, but only part of it. There's a lot more to it than that. So, who contributes content? Of course, our own SMEs or subject matter experts, SMEs of our partners, professors in universities, authors, pretty much anybody who has a skill and is willing to part with that skill and impart it on others. So all of you, we invite you to participate and create guided projects and courses and so on. What we do is we distribute them. We distribute them to high-value audiences. Okay? Now, we don't pay, so you have to find a different way of, incentivizing yourself. But it works really, really well, because you become. We basically tell people if you have experience and or knowledge and a skill, and you're willing to impart it to the others, we're going to make you famous. And that actually has worked for our authors quite well. So think of us as YouTube for technical content. Okay. But enough of that. So I said, how do you automate stuff, especially when you deal with learners? Well, we have created a number of advisors and assistants to deal with this. And what we try to do is we try to model what these responsibilities and roles are in real universities or education institutions. But before we get to that, if you look at the top in there, it says AI Classroom. We actually teach a lot of AI. As a matter of fact, AI is our most popular topic. I wonder why. So we created a special tool called AI Classroom for teaching people AI, and I'll talk a little bit about that. All of the assistants and advisors you see in the bottom is how we help our learners learn. So we have a student advisor, and so think of an equivalent role in a university with somebody who helps students get integrated into campus life, tells them where everything is, helps them with course selection, helps them with majors and so on. We called it Joanne. It's a separate story, and if you want, you can actually ask our student advisor why you called Joanne, and I'll give you a brief explanation. It actually has to do with me. I'm forever thankful to my student advisor who changed my life, and her name was Joanne. Okay. So we also partnered with Intella, and Andrea here is in the front row, and they've created something called a Unibot. And Unibot is a teaching assistant who knows everything about the course, and every course gets their own teaching assistant, as you would in a normal university, right? A TA. Now we do a lot of labs. So in our labs, we have a lab assistant, and his or her name is Ty. Teaching assistant powered by AI. Okay, we're good on that. Now, all of this AI is meant to sort of front end the humans, but in the end, some cases humans have to get involved, especially when things go wrong. So we have a lot more. We have two other pieces of AI. One's called Flow, because she makes the tickets flow through the system, and we have a Scrum Master, which is yet to be named. It makes sure that our students and our full-timers are responding to those tickets that people are. So it bugs people. It says, you got this. You got to fix it. You got to fix it. Okay. Now for the content creators, we have something that helps them break the writer's block. So the project creator, it'll help you create stories around you tell it what you want to teach, and it'll help you create real-time stories for the real projects. So you're solving a real problem. Okay, and you can have a lot of interactions with it. It helps you create the title, helps you create the description, the story. It'll optimize it for SEO, do all of the right stuff. Stuff that technical people hate to do. Rav will talk about our assignment grader called Mark, because Mark marks assignments. Okay. Now, a couple of other things that are low-hanging fruit. When you create content, so for example, video content, what's the first thing you need to do? Is you need to create closed captioning, so the transcript. We generate that automatically. You upload a video, we generate the transcript. If we generate the transcript, we might as well translate it. So we do that. We translate it automatically. It allows the authors to worry about producing the content and not producing all of the stuff around the content. It's all done automatically. All you need to do is you need just to contribute content. For text content, I love audiobooks. As a matter of fact, when people said, don't you hate COVID? I said, no, I love COVID, because sorry, I do hate COVID because I can no longer drive to work. And what do I do when I drive to work? I listen to audiobooks. COVID took that away from me. So basically, I love listening to audio. So we automatically create the audio for our material. This is an example of how that gets created. So all you need to do is you need to upload your text, and that player gets created automatically. Nothing for you to do. Okay, and of course the player has the speed selection, and if you want to listen to something twice as fast, it's all there. Now I mentioned that we teach AI, and one of the first things you need to do when you teach people AI is not to teach them is you teach them about prompt engineering. So you can learn how to do prompt engineering by going to, say, something like ChatGPT, and you'll use the ChatGPT interface to experiment. And there's a ton of courses that will help you do that. But if you want to learn how to do this with Llama 3, which is like a very popular open source LLM, well, there's no place to go to. If you want to do this with Anthropic, like something like Claude, which is super popular right now, they have their own interface. And every LLM has their own interface. And then what we find is our students, our learners, are finding it very difficult because Claude is not available outside of the United States. It was not available outside the United States for a long time. Majority of our learners are from outside of the United States. Well, how do you give them access? How do they get access? Even if they get access, sometimes they're required to secure their account with a credit card, even if it's free. So access is really difficult. So what we decided to do, we said, well, why don't we create a tool where we give you access to everything. We'll front end it. If you have to pay, we'll pay. And you'll see that, when I have a screen capture here with a pull down, all of the models you can work with. So now you're not learning how to prompt with ChatGPT. Now you're learning the prompt engineering with everything, including things like DALL-E 3, so you can generate images, which you ordinarily have to pay for, including things like GPT-4o, which just came out recently, including things like Claude 3.5, which just came out, I think, last week, and it's all the rage. So that's our tool. And this is the example of a guided project. We have instructions on the left that tells you what to do, and the tool to do it in on the right. So you read, or you can watch in there, and you can do, all in the same place, all through the browser. Nothing to install, nothing to configure, nothing to download. It's all set up for you. Now, before I get to talk about all the AI we have, I paraphrased Isaac Asimov's 3 laws of robotics, and I call them 3 laws of assistance for IBM Skills Network. So when we design an assistant, we need to make sure that this assistant knows its stuff. So we don't just wrap ChatGPT around and say, here, ChatGPT knows nothing about our course. ChatGPT knows nothing about our lab. ChatGPT just knows stuff, but doesn't know our stuff. So our assistants have to know our stuff, the stuff you're learning. This is really important. Second part is the reason we have assistants is for them to be helpful. They need to take away the workload from the humans. They need to be able to answer as much, to be as helpful as possible on their own. Okay? And third is it needs to be easy for us to deploy. Don't be difficult. So those are the 3 rules for, and I'll show you how I'll use Thai as an example of how we do that. So this is one of our tools. This is a guided project or a lab. And it's about setting up LangChain. LangChain is a very popular technology for orchestrating workload in LLMs, or generative AI. And what you see on the right end here is an interface, which is basically, most of you who are programmers will recognize it. It's VS Code, Visual Studio Code. But it's run in a browser. You don't have to install it. It's not on your laptop. It's not just a VS Code. It's a VS Code with a lot of stuff in it. So for example, it has MongoDB and MySQL and Airflow and Cassandra and a bunch of other stuff. It's got big data things in there like Hadoop. So all the stuff that you would not even be able to install on your laptop. Okay, so it's all included in there. Now what you see in here is you see instructions on the left, and you can kind of follow the bouncing ball. Where you see, for example, the first instruction is to do pip install of LangChain, IBM LangChain. And you see 2 little icons in here. One is kind of like sort of looks like a command line. If you press it, your instructions will get executed on the right. So on the right, there's a terminal window on the bottom. So I press that button, and the instructions are executed. I can also copy and paste it there. But then you didn't really learn what that was. Like, what was it? So one of the things I can do, I can ask Thai, and Thai's sitting on That's an icon right there. I can ask Ty, what does this command do? Like pip install langchain -IBM langchain. And Ty will think for a couple of seconds, and it'll say, this is a real screenshot. It says, pip is a Python package installer. Install is the command to install. And you're installing 2 packages, and it'll explain what these packages are. And then at the end, it will also say, why are you doing this? You're going to be using this later in the course when you're doing a Flask interface. This is actually a more involved project. It does more than just LangChain. When you're going to be doing that, you're going to need the LLM. You're going to need to use the LangChain, and this kind of installs it. And because the model in here runs in the IBM cloud and something called watsonx.ai, you need a special library like a shim called langchain-IBM. Okay, so it explained to me why I was doing what I was doing, and it can apply to why, because it knows about the content of the course. Now sometimes things go wrong, and here I'm simulating. I'm telling it, hey, my screen on the right is frozen. What can I do? So Ty goes and tries to be helpful. So remember, the second commandment was be helpful. Okay, so Ty tries to be helpful and says, and I of course couldn't fit all of the instructions that they gave, but it said, clear your cookies, restart the usual commands, so the usual suggestions. And I said, well, it's still not working. And it says, you know what? Out of my depth, you need to create a support ticket, and it will create a support ticket for me. And I'll get to review the support ticket, and that support ticket now goes into our support system. And this is the way it arrives. This is where the flow comes in. Now, if my right side of the screen was frozen, it was probably the infrastructure problem. I don't know, Kubernetes cluster blew up, whatever. I will probably get 500 others. So on the average, we'll run about 4,000, 4,500 live lab sessions at any time. So I'll probably get a lot of people complaining about this. So what Flow will do is they're going to take all of these tickets and mush them into one. So I don't assign it to 500 developers, which I don't have. Okay. And notice what it does. It also tells you everything about the source of the ticket, which portal it came from, which course it was in, which lab it was in, what time that happened, who was the submitter. So all of that information, which is priceless, because we typically didn't used to be able to get it. And on the right-hand side, you see what it does. It summarizes, by the way, it also captures the entire conversation with Ty. What it does is it summarizes that conversation. It gives you steps to reproduce the problem, and it also tells you what the possible fix is. Now imagine how much faster we can react to this problem right now if we get all this information. So that's how we use AI. And now, I mentioned this is not a wrapper on ChatGPT. Everybody I talk to says, oh, we're using ChatGPT to create some kind of like an assistant. Everybody's doing that. Okay, we started that way too. We quickly found out that it's not going to take us very far. Why so? Okay, so at the top of the chart, you see what you typically, I know this looks like a lot of squares and arrows. Top of the chart is the user interface. And this is where you submit your questions to Ty and get responses. This is where you say thumbs up, thumbs down. Nothing super exciting in here. Very quick to create. Anybody can create that. So it then sends this, the conversation over to the Ty endpoint, and then we start to examine it. We say, is somebody to no good in here? Are they trying to do a prompt injection, which is a pretty common attack right now against AI? Say, no, there's no prompt injection. Then we run it through a set of guardrails to make sure that it's on topic and it's not offensive. Today's keynote probably wouldn't have gone through. Okay, and once we find that it's okay, we say, yeah, if it's not okay, if it's offensive, we'll tell back, says, listen, we don't appreciate your language, or we can't talk about that, okay, whatever. But if we say it's okay, then we say, okay, now how do we answer this question? So the first thing is we need to know about what you're what's the content of the stuff that you're asking about. And this is where our lab context search comes in. So those of you who are doing stuff with Gen AI probably have heard the term of RAG. Okay, RAG is a technique that's that allows you to pre-process things and find things before you ask LLM. Okay, so whenever you submit your lab, whenever you create a lab or create something, we immediately pre-process it. So we acquire the knowledge right at the time of creation, not at the time of people asking. And we create embeddings. Embeddings is basically vectorized or compressed knowledge. Okay. Then what we'll take is this embeddings, we'll combine it with the prompt that the customer has given us or the student has given us, and we send it to LLM. And LLM now has a lot more information to provide an answer. So notice I didn't say we fine-tune the model. That would be way too expensive. As a matter of fact, it would be impossible for us to do. We put everything into the prompt. And now the context windows are very large, and because the embeddings are very compact, we're able to send the entire knowledge base, so to speak, as part of the prompt into LLM. And now our LLM can be anything. Can be one of our own, can be fine-tuned LLM by us, can be ChatGPT, GPT 4.0, can be Llama 3, Mixtral. There's thousands of them. Okay, so we can slot and remove LLMs at will. So we get the stuff back from the LLM, and we put it through another set of guardrails to make sure that what comes back is not offensive as well, because we'd like not to offend. Okay, and then we return the answer to the user. So this whole infrastructure, we use it everywhere, and it's common for us. So at this point in time, I'm going to pass the baton to Rav, who's going to talk about some of the other AI we have. And
thanks, Leon.
I should say that I apologize. Our intention was to do this live demos. Yesterday, we found out that the internet is not entirely reliable in here. So we did a lot of screenshots. And I'm glad we did, because this demos would have taken a lot more time. Okay.
So what we have here is collaboration between IBM and our partner Intella. We realize that the infrastructure that we have, the number of learners that we have, it's not possible to do everything by yourself. So we're very open to collaborate and work with other partners who can, deliver something. So we were doing all of the other, bots and assistants, but, given the small team that we had, one of the most important things was to go build an interface where learners could interact and get contextual answers to issues that they were having with a course that they were taking. And Intella said, we've built something like this, which I think you would find useful. So we said, sure, let's try it out. So we took this thing called Unibot, and we're currently, we have it in a few limited set of courses, and our intent is that over the coming weeks or months, we will make this teaching assistant or course assistant available in all of our courses on all of our platforms. So here is a course called Python for Data Science. And so this, at the bottom, right, you'll see the typical chatbot icon. And again, this is configurable. You can put your own icon, etc. And when you click on that, you have the teaching assistant pop up telling you, I'm your virtual teaching assistant for this course. Feel free to ask your questions. I can understand and respond in over 20 languages, and I'm here to help you about any questions you might have about the course. So this is all configurable, as you'll see a little bit later on. The language that you want for your course assistant, this is something that the instructor for the course can name the chatbots. Right now this one is called Teaching Assistant, but you might want to call it something else. And you can do that. And the language and the welcome message, all of that is configurable. So since this is a Python course, I would ask a question like, write a hello world program in Python. And that's something, it's anything like ChatGPT can respond to that, because that's just general stuff. It's not specific to the course. And so it'll give you, print hello world Python code for that. But a more interesting example would be, okay, so you ask a course something that's specific in the course. And so I asked a question like, in which module in the course are APIs covered? And I probably mistyped the spelling of covered, but it understood that. So it tells you APIs are covered in module 5 of the course. This module, and gives you additional context, like this module delves into topics such as explaining the use of HTTP protocol using request library method, and so on. Now, one thing that really got us interested in this particular technology is its ability to have guardrails about what the learner can ask about. So there is a quiz later on in the course. And on that quiz, there's a question: what is the result of the following operation in Python? 3 plus 2 multiplied by 2. Right? And the chatbot, the course assistant, is smart enough to realize that, okay, this is a question from a quiz, or is a similar question on a quiz later in the course. So it responds with something like, unfortunately, I'm not able to assist you with questions from upcoming tests. And you'll see this later on. So, but then again, okay, I asked a question like, in which video in the course can I learn about mathematical operations like 3 plus 2 multiplied by 2? And that's where, again, it's aware of the context, it's aware of the content in the course, and it tells you, you can learn about mathematical operations in the video that covers expressions and variables. So that's that video. Now, so this is a start, and then, as I said, we are piloting this with a select number of courses for now. So one of the feedbacks that we are passing on to Intella to implement is, okay, don't just tell me which video it is in, give us a link to that video, or give us the link to the place in the course where the learner can simply click and go and review that concept. So now is the more interesting part. So this TA, or course assistant, has been implemented as a plugin for Open edX. So an instructor can go, or the admin for the Open edX instance can go and install this plugin once, and then it'll be available to all of the instructors who want to leverage the course assistant for their individual courses. So just, in the Open edX interface, you have an instructors tab, and next to the instructors tab, the AI assistant tab will show up once the plugin has been installed. And it's a simple step-by-step wizard that lets you configure the chatbot very, very easily. So there's introduction, settings, models, etc., the various tabs towards the top there. So if you walk through that, one of the first tabs is the settings for the course assistant. What languages you want to enable, for example. What appearance do you want for your course assistant? The greeting for the course assistant, the name of the course assistant, etc., the icon or the avatar for the course assistant. You can set the size of the window that pops up, the colors for it, etc. And then models. There's, I think, a few hundred models that are all privately hosted by Intella. So privately hosted means that your course content, and which was important for us, which was a key requirement for us, our course content, our IP, isn't being sent to a public model, which it's using for its own training. It's going to a privately hosted model, and a model that you can select. In this case, the default here is Llama 3. And again, even with Llama 3, you'll have multiple variations, the bigger Llama, the smaller Llama, and so on. So in addition to that, there's a number of other models that have been provided. And what we've asked Intella to do is also put together an interface if an instructor, let's say, doesn't want to pay for one of these privately hosted models. You'll be able to provide your API key and connect to a model that you want. If you want to connect to GPT-4o, you'd be able to do that. If you want to connect to another model such as Llama 3 hosted on IBM Watson, you'll be able to do that. And we've asked, we're big proponents of open source. So we've asked for this plugin to be made available as an open source, and that anyone will be able to set up and use on their own. Of course, these private models won't be available through through open source, but the interface, the ability to create your own course assistant for your course, all of that will be open source. So over the last few years, we've been experimenting with creating course assistants. And the hardest part of that was training the AI bot with your course content. In the past, the technologies that were available to us, it used to take, weeks, sometimes even months, to feed it all of the information and test it and make sure it all worked fine. And what really got us to say, okay, we want to put this in our courses, is this Scan My Course button. You click on that, it goes through your entire Open edX course. It recognizes all of the various modules there are in the course, and it gives, for this particular course, Python for data science, it took about 2 minutes to scan the entire course and become familiar with the content that's in the course. So once it's complete, it's showing 100% complete, and all of the stuff has been scanned and it's active. Now, where it really helps, that scanning helps is, first of all, it's the answers, the responses that you get back are contextual. But the other is also aware of questions that might be on the quizzes, right? And so it scanned all of the quizzes in the course, whether they're graded or non-graded. And the instructor can decide whether they want to restrict answers just for the graded questions or also for the practice quizzes. And there's also, I believe, going to be an ability soon to be able to add your additional questions that you don't want learners to get a response back for. And just like the ability to add additional questions that you want to restrict from learners from asking or getting answers to, in addition to the content in the course, there is ability to add your additional content. Let's say the instructor for this course has written a book on Python. So the instructor is able to, as additional context, upload a soft copy of that book, and that's an additional knowledge bank for this particular course, right? Again, this might be very useful for things that are not in the public domain. You're, let's say, training engineers for an aircraft manufacturing system, or let's say building a rocket or whatever. Your stuff isn't going to be in ChatGPT. So in order to train it, you can give it specific additional context that might be relevant for your course audiences. And then there is a performance dashboard that shows you, how many, how much feedback was requested, and so on. So all of that, I think, it makes this course assistant a really, really promising one. We're actively testing right now with a limited number of courses, and so far our experience has been really, really positive. There's a few things that we've requested. For example, being able, if a learner asks for needs help in a certain area, we can then point them to they'll be able to click on a link to and take them to the part of the course which covers that context in more, the content in more detail. So the other place where we're using AI, which has been something that has been a constant source of frustration with our learners, has been grading. Almost all of our courses have final projects. And these final projects, let's say it's a coding project. It's something that is not easy to evaluate using, let's say, a multiple choice question. So what do? One option is to do manual grading. But like Leon was saying, we've got 20 million course enrollments. It's not physically possible to do, hire a whole bunch of people to do the manual grading. And all of our courses are self-paced courses. Anyone can take them at their own time. So what we've relied on for the past several years is peer grading, or ORAs in Open edX. So but the issue with that is some peers, there's a rubric that's provided, and some peers would do a really good job of following the rubric and assigning you a grade. But every so often we get a learner saying that, I don't think I was graded fairly by my peer. You can get around that by requesting more people to grade your assignment. So having 2 or 3 people and taking an average. Even that is fraught with errors. Let's say one person gives you a 10%, the other person gives you a 90%. And so your total grade will be an average of the two, which isn't really a good grade either. The other thing is the response time. Our courses are self-paced courses, so person wants to take a course on 2 a.m. on Sunday morning. They submit their assignment. They want to get an answer right away, but their peer might not grade them until Tuesday next week. So those are the problems that we've tried to solve using this AI-graded assistant called Mark. We've created an interface within our course content creation environment where you just click on create an assignment, and then you can configure the assignment. And we did this specifically outside of Open edX because we have a number of platforms outside of Open edX where we also offer our content. For example, on Coursera. For example, on Plural's site, there isn't even an ability to do quizzes, or let alone assessments like this. So because of that reason, we've implemented it as a separate tool to create the assignment, but then you can embed it within any LMS using LTI. And the other beauty of LTI is that LTI can return a grade to you. So here is an interface. I've been flagged. There's 1 minute left, so I'll just quickly walk through it. You can set it up with things like whether it's a graded assignment or a practice assignment, is there a time limit or not, what's the passing grade, etc. And then you enter your question. In this case, it's provide the URL. So there's, response types can be a free form text field, and you can say what's the maximum number of characters it'll take, or it could be a URL. And we're implementing capabilities to add other types of responses, such as images, etc., or PDFs. And then you can add a rubric, just like you would do for an ORA. And you add additional questions and their rubrics. And then you click on the Save and Publish button on the top, and that makes it available. So, and then you can add it just like any other LTI component in any course. And here's an example of an assignment that has been created using this AI-powered tool called Mark. This is a course on edX.org, and there's a launch button, a launch app button at the bottom, where learners, when they click on it, they'll see something like this. This is the question. Learner can enter, here it says provide URL for a cybersecurity role. The later questions will ask for the questions about that. But let's say I put in a response like this URL, and it has English teacher jobs or HTML in the URL. So the AI detects that this is not a cybersecurity role. So according to the rubric, it gives you 0 out of 1 and gives you feedback of why you're getting that 0 out of 1. So with that, I'm here. We're here to answer any questions that you might have. Now, there's a lot of other assistants and AI chatbots and tools that we talked about. We couldn't show all of them to you here today, but we encourage you to go try them out at cognitiveclass.ai. And if you want to author any projects or create content, you can go to author.skills.network. And for the course assistant, here's Andre's email from Intella. You can contact them if you were interested in trying, getting a course assistant for your sites. So thank you.